Have you ever felt like you're playing a role in a story that doesn't quite belong to you? Like you're moving through life with a name, a history, a personality. But something deeper whispers, "This isn't the real me." They never told you that your identity was chosen for you before you even had the chance to choose it. They gave you a name, a culture, a belief system. They handed you rules, routines, and expectations, and called it you. And so you wore the costume. You learned to respond, to perform, to fit in, but somewhere along the way a question started to echo inside. Is this all there is? You were taught that awakening is something far away, reserved for monks, mystics, or people who give up everything to meditate on mountaintops, that to reach any kind of inner freedom, you'd have to fight, sacrifice, or earn it through pain. But the truth is, awakening doesn't begin with effort. It begins with awareness. And sometimes, awareness arrives so quietly, you don't even realize it's already started. The shift you're waiting for? It's not out there. It's already happening inside you. It's like tuning a radio. You've been hearing static your whole life, thinking that was all there was. Background noise, confusion, restlessness. But the clear signal has always been broadcasting from within. You just weren't tuned in. Nothing outside needs to change. Only the station you're listening to. Science is catching up with what mystics have said for centuries. Dr. Bruce Lipton shows us that beliefs can literally rewire our biology. Joe Dispenza proves that your brain doesn't distinguish between what's real and what's imagined, meaning your entire sense of self is just a well-rehearsed chemical loop. The person you think you are is mostly a habit. And yet, even with this knowledge, even knowing you're more than your patterns, you still feel stuck. Why? Because you keep trying to change using the same mind that created the illusion. You're trying to free yourself while dragging the chains with you. And the old self, it doesn't want to let go. It clings, it panics, it begs to be remembered. But what if remembering isn't the answer? What if the path to who you really are is the path of forgetting? In this video, we're not just talking about ideas. We're activating a deeper knowing that already lives inside you. You'll understand why the version of you that feels lost, exhausted, or numb can't survive this next stage of your evolution. And more importantly, how to finally connect with the you that's already awake, already aware, already free. So, if this theme pulls something inside your chest, if something about this feels familiar, even if you can't explain why, don't ignore it. Subscribe to the channel right now and walk with me through this journey, not later, now. Because sometimes the moment chooses you, and this is one of those moments. Now we'll go deeper into how your false identity was designed, not by accident but with intention, to keep you disconnected from your truth. And once you see that, you'll never look at yourself the same way again. The false identity was designed to keep you asleep. There's a reason you felt disconnected. Like no matter how much you heal, grow, or search, something still feels slightly out of place. Like wearing someone else's skin. That feeling isn't random. It was carefully installed. Before you could speak, before you could question, they gave you a name. They told you who you are, what to believe, how to behave, and you trusted it because you had no other choice. From your very first breath, the world around you began writing a script, not for your soul, but for your role. Be good, be quiet, get in line, don't ask too many questions, and the more you obeyed, the more safe you were made to feel. But safe from what? The truth is, this identity was never yours. It was built to keep you compliant, predictable, asleep. The school systems didn't teach you who you are. They trained you to become useful, to fit into a machine. You were not taught to feel. You were taught to perform. Let me give you a modern example. Ever notice how social media trains your brain to crave likes, follows, validation? It's the same pattern. The more approval you chase, the further you drift from your core. Dopamine rewards the false self, not the true one. But what if the most powerful truth was hiding where you never thought to look? You've seen it before. You just didn't know how to read it. Every time you felt out of place in your own skin, every time you silenced your intuition to be accepted, every time you said yes when your whole body screamed no, that wasn't weakness, that was your soul knocking. Let me explain. There's a myth that says you need to find yourself. But maybe the truth is simpler and harder. You need to forget who you were told to be. It's like this. Imagine wearing a costume your whole life. A mask so familiar, you forgot there was even a face underneath, until one day, the mask starts to crack, and for a moment you see light coming through. Pause for a moment. Breathe. Can you feel a part of your identity that's been borrowed, inherited, or imposed? Bruce Lipton reminds us that our beliefs create our biology, meaning the way you were taught to perceive yourself literally shaped your cells, your hormones, your nervous system. And Joe Dispenza shows that your brain doesn't distinguish between memory and imagination, that who you are is a programmed loop, not an absolute truth. So if your identity was built on survival, conformity, and fear, of course it feels threatened by authenticity, freedom, and expansion. Now here's the deeper tension. Even when you start to wake up, even when you know something's off, that false identity fights to stay alive. Because to the ego, even a prison feels safe if it's familiar. And that's why so many people stall on their path. They want the truth, but they're still addicted to the performance. We'll go even deeper into that next, because waking up isn't just about seeing the illusion. It's about releasing the part of you that keeps clinging to it. In the next section, we'll uncover the subtle signs that your inner shift has already started, and why you might be further along than you think. But first, take a breath. What word would you use to describe what you're feeling right now? Maybe it's release, maybe it's truth, maybe it's remembering. Whatever it is, write it in the comments. Let it echo in the space. Let it become your imprint in this moment. Proof that the shift has already started inside you. You might not remember the exact moment it began, because awakening doesn't always come like lightning. Sometimes it arrives like a subtle change in the wind. It starts with a silence that feels different, a conversation that used to trigger you, but now doesn't, a place you used to love that now feels heavy. People you once called home now feel like strangers. You try to explain it, but the words fall flat, because it's not something you think, it's something you feel. You begin to notice glitches in your memory, like time feels distorted. Déjà vu becomes more frequent. You feel both ancient and newborn, all at once. You're pulled towards solitude, but it doesn't feel lonely, it feels clean. Pause now. Have you felt this too? A growing sense that the life you were living is no longer where your energy belongs? Let me give you an example. You walk into your old workplace, the job you used to strive for, maybe even loved, and suddenly it feels like wearing clothes 2 sizes too small. No one said anything. Nothing happened. But your body knows, this is no longer me. You scroll through social media and realize how empty it feels. What once made you feel connected now feels like noise. Your soul has changed frequencies, and not everyone, or everything, makes the jump with you. You see, the shift doesn't always announce itself with fireworks. Sometimes it whispers, "This isn't yours anymore." And here's the catch. The old version of you tries to interpret this shift through logic, but this transformation doesn't speak in logic. It speaks in vibration. You're starting to dream more vividly. You wake up with phrases in your mind that you've never heard before. You're drawn to books, places, people that speak to a deeper layer of your being. It's like something or someone from your future is calling you forward, and the call is getting louder. But what if what you're feeling isn't confusion? What if it's clarity, unfiltered, unexplainable, and undeniable? Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine waking up inside a dream. At first, it's subtle. Things feel off. A clock doesn't move. A face looks unfamiliar. Then it hits you. This is a dream, and I am the dreamer. That moment changes everything. Not because the world around you shifted, but because you did. You're starting to remember who you are beneath the programming. You're not crazy. You're not broken. You're waking up. And the more you tune in, the more the illusion dissolves. Not all at once, but piece by piece. And each piece reveals something more, real. We'll explore now why, even after sensing this shift, your old self keeps coming back. Why you sabotage your own expansion, and how to gently, but powerfully, reclaim your inner space. The hidden sabotage. Why your old self keeps resurfacing. So you've started to feel the shift. You've noticed the signs. But then, out of nowhere, the old patterns return. The anxiety creeps in. The doubt speaks louder. The urge to control everything, again. And a part of you wonders, am I going backwards? But no, you're not regressing. You're confronting the echo of who you used to be. And that echo doesn't want to fade quietly. You see, your old self wasn't just mental, it was chemical. Every emotion, every routine fear, every familiar wound built a biochemical loop in your body. You didn't just think like your past self, you felt like it. And the body is loyal. It will choose predictable suffering over unfamiliar freedom. Because to your nervous system, change equals danger, even if that change is liberation. Let me give you an example. You decide to finally rest. To just be, no tasks, no distractions, just stillness. And suddenly, the guilt kicks in. That inner voice says, you're wasting time, you should be doing something, you're falling behind. But who taught you that stillness equals failure? That voice is not your truth, it's your training. Even when you're moving forward, the past will try to seduce you with its old rhythm. It's not sabotage, it's muscle memory. Let me explain. Your body is addicted to urgency, to proving, to stress. Because for years, it received rewards, approval, survival, belonging, every time you ignored your needs to meet others' expectations. So when you try to change, the body panics. Not because you're wrong, but because you're unfamiliar. And unfamiliar feels unsafe until you reteach it otherwise. Joe Dispenza puts it clearly, to step into a new future, you must become unfamiliar to your past self, not just in thought, but in feeling, in habit, in response. You must let go of the you who survived to become the you who thrives. But how? Let's pause here. Close your eyes for a moment. Breathe. Feel into your body. Notice, where do you still carry the weight of an old identity? Maybe it's in the rush to please. Maybe it's in the silence you hold instead of speaking truth. Maybe it's in the way you downplay your own magic, just to stay small enough for others to feel comfortable. And now, imagine gently placing that version of you down, not with judgment, but with gratitude, because it got you here, but it can't take you further. Just now, we'll talk about how to recognize your true self when it finally starts to emerge, not in theory, but in everyday life. You'll begin to see how the new you already exists and has been showing signs all along. How to recognize the new self in real life. Sometimes the most profound changes happen so gently, we almost miss them. You're not waking up in a dramatic explosion of awareness. You're unfolding, softly, quietly, like a flower that stops asking if it's ready to bloom. and simply does. But how do you recognize this new self if it doesn't look like you expected? Let me explain. The new you doesn't arrive with fireworks. It arrives in your preferences, in the things you no longer tolerate, in the peace you now protect, in the conversations you no longer force, in the need to be alone, not to escape others, but to return to yourself. Have you noticed this? You don't react like before. The drama that once consumed you now feels boring. The people who once triggered you now seem transparent, even tender. You're not judging them. You just no longer match them. That's not distance, that's expansion. You start choosing silence over explanation. You choose presence over performance. You choose stillness, not because you gave up, but because you finally arrived. Pause now. Can you think of a recent moment where you surprised yourself by not reacting the way your old self would have? Maybe you felt sadness, but didn't sink into it. Maybe you said no without explaining. Maybe you walked away and didn't look back. These are signs, not that you're changing, but that you've already changed. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine a seed growing underground. It doesn't announce its growth, it doesn't seek applause, but one day it breaks the surface, and no one questions if it's a tree even before the fruit appears, because its presence already carries the truth of what it is becoming. Your presence is shifting, not loud, but certain. This new self isn't louder, it's deeper. It doesn't seek permission, it is permission. And here's something beautiful. You don't have to hold on to this version of you, because it's not going anywhere. It's who you've always been, beneath the noise. Let me take a moment to say this. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you. Thank you for staying, for feeling, for being here. You're not alone in this. We're walking this path together. So if this message resonated with you, take a second to share something in the comments. Have you felt any of these changes lately? Has the new you been showing up in ways you didn't expect? Your story could be the mirror someone else needs. And if you haven't subscribed yet, this is a good moment, not just to stay connected, but to be part of something real. A community waking up together. So subscribe now. There's more waiting for you. We're just getting started. We'll go deeper into how to release the old self with love, not fear. You'll learn a practice that doesn't just invite change, it anchors it. A 3-step practice to let the old self die without fear. Death isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it looks like silence, like letting go of a version of yourself that was built not from truth, but from survival. And that kind of death, the internal one, is terrifying, because we weren't taught how to release with grace. We were taught to hold on, to keep functioning, to get over it. But your old self isn't something to get over, it's something to honor, and then to release. Here's the process, not a formula, not a fix, just a pathway for letting the old dissolve, so the real can rise. Step 1, name the identity, not with judgment, but with recognition. Bring it to the surface. Who were you trying to be? What were the roles you clung to, the labels, the masks, the expectations? Maybe it was the strong one. Maybe it was the peacemaker. Maybe it was the one who never breaks. These identities were strategies, not essence. They helped you survive something, but they're not who you are. Pause for a moment. Can you name that version of you that's been trying to fade? The one that still knocks when you're tired, when you feel unsafe, when you question everything? Step 2, detach with compassion. Once you've named it, don't push it away. Thank it, truly, because it protected you when you didn't know better. It carried you through pain. It made sure you stayed accepted, safe, included. But now, it's tired, and it's time to let it rest. This isn't abandonment, it's completion. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack everywhere you go, full of outdated beliefs, old fears, ancestral patterns. You've carried it so long, you forgot it was there. But the moment you set it down, you don't just feel lighter. You realize you've been walking uphill, barefoot, for years. Step 3, anchor in the now. This is where the shift becomes embodied. Don't rush past this part. Breathe, feel your body. Feel the space that just opened. Now observe without reacting, without needing to explain or define. This is presence, and presence is power. Use this space to do something simple, something quiet but sacred. Maybe you look at yourself in the mirror and ask, who am I beyond this? Maybe you place your hand on your heart and listen, not for words, for resonance. Neuroscience shows that when you combine breath, awareness, and intention, you're not just relaxing, you're rewiring. You're reshaping the very way your body responds to reality. What once triggered survival now becomes space for peace. Let me be clear, this is not a one-time ritual. This is a return, over and over, gently and deliberately, until the new becomes your natural. And if fear arises again, because it will, let it. But don't become it. Let it speak, then let it go. And now we'll dive into the strange, often painful experience of remembering your soul's deeper memory, and why this return feels so raw, so confusing, and yet so right. The soul memory is returning, and it's uncomfortable. Sometimes what feels like falling apart is actually the soul remembering itself. But that remembering isn't always gentle. It comes in waves, sudden feelings, forgotten memories, emotions that crash without warning. It comes when you're not trying, when you're driving, when you're folding laundry, when you're in a room full of people, and suddenly your chest tightens, your eyes fill, and you don't know why. You're not regressing, you're releasing. Let me explain. When your frequency starts to shift, your soul begins to shed what no longer resonates. And what no longer resonates can be people, places, dreams, or pieces of you that were never truly yours. This shedding doesn't feel clean. It feels messy, disorienting, even grief-stricken, because part of you is mourning the illusion, and illusions, even when false, gave you something to hold on to. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine a snake shedding its skin. In that moment of release, it's exposed, vulnerable, raw, but that discomfort is the passage, not the problem. The skin wasn't wrong, it just expired. And here's something no one tells you. Remembering who you are also means remembering what you're not. That's why old emotions, sadness, fear, shame, resurface, not to trap you, but to free you. They were stored in the body, waiting for you to be strong enough to feel them. And now, you are. Maybe you've noticed this. You remember moments from childhood you hadn't thought of in years. You feel waves of sadness without a clear cause. You cry during music, sunsets, or someone else's story. You feel more, but also more alive. You're not broken. You're becoming porous to truth. And sometimes the truth hurts, not because it's cruel, but because it touches parts of you that were left waiting to be acknowledged, felt, healed. Pause now. Breathe. Can you remember a recent moment when an emotion surprised you? Not because it was new, but because it was ancient. This is soul memory. And yes, people may drift away. Some may ghost you. Others may try to pull you back into the version of you that felt easier to love. But don't take that as a sign you're wrong. Take it as proof that you're realigning. Your frequency is no longer negotiable. And as the mind resists, the soul rejoices. If you let go, not with violence, but with trust, the truth beneath the ache begins to speak. Let's go now explore why this shift isn't optional and what happens when we try to resist it, because the energy moving through you now will not wait forever. Why this shift is not optional and what happens if you resist. There comes a point on every soul's path where staying the same becomes more painful than changing. And if you've made it this far, you've already crossed that threshold, even if part of you is still trying to hold on. You see, this shift, it's not just yours. It's collective, global, energetic. It's a recalibration happening through timelines, generations, and fields of consciousness. You might have felt it already. A rising tension in the world, polarization, collapse of systems. But underneath all the noise, something ancient is awakening. Let me give you an image. Imagine standing in front of a doorway. Behind you is everything you've known. Habits, identities, relationships, beliefs. Ahead of you, the unknown. Not chaos, but clarity you haven't yet learned to trust. You don't need to force the door open. It's already ajar. But the longer you hesitate, the heavier it becomes, because energy doesn't stay neutral. When you resist evolution, the pressure intensifies. Life starts to feel like static, confusion, repetition, exhaustion. You keep repeating lessons, not because you're failing, but because the universe won't let you walk forward with yesterday's vibration. Let me be even more direct. There is no middle ground anymore. You can no longer live halfway awakened, half in truth, half in fear, half sovereign, half performing. That space, the one where you used to manage the discomfort, is collapsing. This isn't punishment, it's invitation. When you resist the shift, what happens? More anxiety, more control, more desperate searching, not because something is wrong, but because something inside you is trying to be born, and birth requires surrender. Here's a common sign. You try to go back to your old life, the job, the habits, the people, but nothing lands. The food doesn't taste the same. The laughs don't echo the same. You feel like a ghost in your own body because you can't unknow what your soul already remembered. And the old self, it's not wrong, it's just expired. This is not about becoming someone else. It's about becoming only what's real. So, pause now. Ask yourself, with honesty, where am I still negotiating with my own truth? Where am I pretending not to know what I already feel? You don't have to answer with words. The energy will respond either way. In our final reflection, we'll integrate everything we've uncovered. You'll remember what this shift is truly about. And you'll be invited to return to yourself, fully, finally, fearlessly. You're not who you think. The shift already began. You were never meant to stay the version they told you to be. You were never meant to mold yourself into a shape that made others feel more comfortable. You were never meant to shrink your light just to survive in systems built on forgetting. The shift isn't something you have to chase. It's not some future version of yourself waiting to be perfect enough. It's already here. It's in you, now. And this version of you, the one watching, breathing, feeling this moment, is already vibrating at a frequency that the old self cannot hold. So don't wait for permission. Don't wait for someone to hand you a certificate of awakening. You are the signal. You are the doorway. You are the field where the shift takes root. Your future self is not something to reach. It's a memory calling you back into alignment. And if this message stirred something inside you, even if you can't name it, it means something sacred is already moving. Let it move. And if you've made it here, truly, thank you. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for walking beside me in this field of remembrance. You're not alone. If this video spoke to your soul, let it be known. Leave a comment. Let us know how this journey landed for you. What part of you is dissolving right now? What's being born in its place? Leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and most importantly, continue. Continue walking, breathing, softening. Continue choosing what resonates. Continue being the one who remembers. The next video will take you even deeper into the version of you that already lives beyond fear. Watch it next. There's so much more waiting for you inside the echoes of the path. And as you step back into your world, hold this. The reality begins where your old pattern ends. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are exactly where your soul needed you to arrive. Let's keep walking together.